ready to go live right at 9:30. So.
Yep, just so you're all aware, like Warden Weaver said before, I've just started the live, but we're not broadcasting the meeting yet. I will let you know when I'm starting the meeting. We've just dropped in a slide just saying it'll begin shortly. So we're just trying something a little bit different this time to speed up the process.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I understand, like we just had like a 20-minute wait. This is a little bit of a practice for next Wednesday. Stefan has informed us that there will be some times when we have time between committee meetings and that back and forth. So we're all going to need to be patient going through the process. That we will practice a little bit later. Just before we do go live, Dr. Ranade is on a call, so we're going to wait till he's available to bring him onto the meeting. So as we go through the agenda, we'll bring him in when he can. We'll get the presentation going shortly.
And everyone, just so you know, we are live now, so we'll start the meeting at about 9:30. But we are live now. It has gone ahead.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Lambton County Council meeting. It is 9:30, and I would call this meeting for November 25th, 2020 to order. And we'll start off with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. I would ask the clerk to rise and report from our in-camera session.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much, Warden. County Council did meet in camera this morning for 4 minutes to address two matters. One, it approved in-camera minutes of its council meeting being November 4th, 2020. And secondly, it approved its minutes of its Committee P.M. in-camera meeting of November 18th. That's all I have to report.
Thank you for that. And we could have had a delay in our medical officer help, but I believe Dr. Ranade is with us now. So I would ask him if he could give us our county update. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. I will just confirm that you can hear me. No, okay.
There you go.
Okay, how's that?
Very good.
Yep, okay, good, thank you. So a very short update today, Warden and Council. As of yesterday, we're reporting 402 cases in total, and 360 of those have resolved. We don't have any additional institutional or other outbreaks, but you can see the number of cases in Lambton County is slowly creeping up. We've got little blips here and there, and we're able to right now isolate all of the cases and contacts fairly effectively. The larger situation, though, I think is worth noting that, you know, Toronto and Peel are currently in lockdown. Or in the lockdown phase of the province's response framework, and that is we're going to have to watch that to see whether these sort of localized lockdowns are effective, and to see whether or not the surrounding regions around those places end up bumping up their cases, or whether or not they have to go into lockdown as well. So ongoing monitoring of that sort of situation, as well as sort of the global situation, that it, just to reiterate the message I've been saying for a long time, is that when you open up places, you get more cases. So that's important to know, and that's what we're finding here too. Some vaccine developments, a third vaccine company came out and said that they have preliminary results on some of their vaccines. That was the AstraZeneca Oxford trial. And it's a different platform, that vaccine. It's more consistent with the way vaccines are normally developed and delivered. And the advantage to that one would be the significant advantages in distribution, because it can be refrigerated as opposed to frozen. And so that really helps the potential for getting that vaccine out to more people through standard distribution channels. But again, remember that this is all going back to the data needs to be submitted to the regulatory agency, who needs to approve it. It needs to be made and then planned for distribution and delivery. So that's where those things are in that process. And then in terms of rapid testing, the province has secured a number of rapid test devices, and I think some of them have been distributed in very small quantities in an early phase pilot to certain hospitals and other places to try to understand how valuable they could be, right? Because those rapid tests are different than the lab-based tests. And so I think in the initial pilot, people are being double tested. So you get a lab test as well as you get a point of care or a rapid test. And so they'll be able to figure out, hopefully very quickly, how good those are at either screening for disease or diagnosing disease. And those are two different ideas behind the test. But as that unfolds, when we have more information about how that could be rolled out and to whom, then I'll be able to share that, but we don't have that yet. And other things, those are the main things I think I wanted to cover today. We're keeping an eye out on the local situation and seeing cases rise. So I think the importance of the public health measures, and also the reduction in the average number of contacts that people have, especially your social contacts, is really the key message. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there questions this morning for Dr. Rennerday? Mayor Arnold, Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I just had a couple of quick questions, and maybe they might have to be checked by Dr. Rennerday. But I hear on the television listening to the Premier that out of a population of 14.5 million people, they had 150 folks in ICU beds, and it was a major catastrophe. I'm just wondering, how many ICU beds do we have, not only provincially, but locally? And do we have an ability to set up COVID center ICU beds locally fairly quickly?
So thank you for your question. I am not sure of the total number of ICU beds available in the province. We can try to find that out and get that back to you. But in terms of the local numbers, this is just a guesstimate from my memory from when we went through the first wave, but my understanding was that the ICU had approximately 15 or 16 ICU beds, and the capacity to double that to around 30. In terms of setting up a larger unit that could look after COVID patients exclusively, there are 2 or 3 models that people have chosen. So one model is a standalone site, and some people have done that. You'll note that the hospital worked with Lambton College to set up a potential COVID site early on, recognizing that that's harder to do when more spaces are open. Right? So at that time, Lambton College was closed, other facilities were closed, and so you could use them. It becomes harder to find places to do that when more places are open, but I think that, that's always a possibility. The other possibility that actually is what happened at our hospital was that they set up a separate COVID unit or wing to look after COVID patients. And I expect that that would be the first place to go to before you set up an external facility, because not only of the logistical challenges, but also the fact that when you set up an external facility, you need to staff it and administer it and all of those things, right? So I expect you would see a phased approach, that you work with what you have, you take a COVID wing or a COVID unit first, and then as that exceeds its capacity, then you move to the next level, which is to find alternate spaces.
Okay, Any other questions for Dr. Rowday this morning? Councillor Hand?
Do we have any concern, well, I'm sure we all have a concern, but what about if people start coming to our area from areas that are in lockdown? So I had a gentleman come in to our municipal office yesterday saying we should not allow any bookings at our arena, for example, to any teams or people that wanted to come from outside of our region in order to protect, you know, our green color here. So I just wonder if anybody's had any thoughts on that type of control or activity.
Sure. So maybe I'll start, and it might be more of a discussion from what other municipalities are doing, which I'll leave to you. But in terms of what we have heard or what we know, one, we did ask the question about whether or not travel within the province or regulating that to the borders of the response framework was being contemplated by the province, and I think at the moment it is not. There are, in general, the broad public health advice is don't travel unless you absolutely need to. And that doesn't really matter whether you're traveling to a lockdown place or another province or another country. It's don't travel unless you really need to. Beyond that, I think that it's important to separate the idea that anybody who comes from an area in lockdown is at greater risk from people who are here. The risk of getting disease is determined by at least two things. One is the background prevalence of disease, which we know is higher in the places that have a red zone, but also those places have many, many more people. The second factor is the number of contacts that you have, right? So I can very easily imagine a person who lives in one of the lockdown zones who, by virtue of what they're doing in their daily life, is at no greater risk of getting COVID than someone from here. But I could also envision someone from here who's seeing multiple people, social groups every other night, presenting actually a greater risk to the community by virtue of the number of contacts that they have. And so if you're approached about, trying to figure out where people are coming from, I think that it may be, well, one, it's going to be potentially challenging for you to operationalize that. But I think the other piece to it too is that let's not overlook the fact that people coming to us locally may also bring with them a greater risk of disease based on their interaction patterns and what they've been doing, right? And so you probably want to set up your operations so that no matter who's allowed in or whoever comes in, that you've got the safety plan and the protocols ready to go, no matter who walks in the door.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Rowday this morning? Seeing none, thank you, Doctor, for your update, and we will meet again. We'll continue our updates and continue with the message that this isn't going away.
Yep.
Everyone needs to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, we have a delegation from KPMG speaking to us, presenting our social services division service review completed with the Municipal Modernization Program. So welcome, and I'll let you carry on with your presentation.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, Warden and members of Council. My name is Oscar Poloni. I'm a partner with KPMG, and it's my pleasure to be here today to provide County Council with a brief update concerning our review of human services for the County of Lambton. And I'm hoping that you can see my screen and I've done this correctly. In the council package that council would have received, there's our main report as well as the summary presentation. And just by way of introduction, in September of this year, we were requested by the county to assist with a review of human and social services. And this includes a variety of programs that are focused on what I would call vulnerable populations in your community. So it includes Ontario Works, which has both a financial assistance component and an employment support component. It includes a variety of the housing services that the county provides, children's services, homelessness prevention programming, and also circles. So over the last 10 weeks, we have worked with your staff, and we're very appreciative of the support that's been provided to us to develop our report. And really, Council, there are 3 main deliverables that came from the report. The first was the development of service profiles. And these are included as an appendix to the main report. And what they do is they provide a bit of information concerning what you do, why you do it, and how you do it, and also how you compare it to other municipalities. What you will find is that human and social services are very much regulated by the province of Ontario. There's a number of nuances associated with them. So hopefully the service profiles provide a bit more information concerning the county's involvement. The second thing that we've done is we've included a comparative analysis that includes other service managers as well. One of the things that we have found is oftentimes it's helpful to present your operations in comparison to other similar size service managers, so that way you can get a perspective as to your performance vis-a-vis other municipalities. The third component are a series of what we call process maps, and process mapping is a lean technique where you take a specific process, you break it down into the individual work steps, and you identify them specifically for the purposes of efficiencies. So there's areas that we found where, for example, increased use of technology could potentially streamline your functions. There were some areas where you had to ask yourself, was the value consistent with the cost of providing it? And so these really are the 3 deliverables that have stemmed from our review. And just by way of introduction, some of the key themes that we have summarized in our report and that I'd like to bring to Council's attention today. The first off is oftentimes what you will find is municipalities are always looking to ensure value for money and stewardship of public funds. And I think that's a valid objective for any municipal council, not just Lambton. The issue that you have with respect to human and social services is it's very difficult, I would say, to actually achieve very large scale funding reductions or cost reductions associated with this for 2 reasons. First off, the province very much mandates how you deliver these services. And so because of that, your ability to change services and service levels is very difficult, and in certain cases you don't have the choice. And so unlike other municipal services where you would have more discretion, roads for example, this is one where you don't. And so because of that, it's very difficult to make these operational changes because you can't go offside of the province. The second issue is while you spend a lot of money with respect to human and social services, the reality is that in most cases these are very heavily funded by the province. And so because of that, to the extent that you reduce operating costs by, say, $1 million, just as an example's sake, you will also lose a corresponding amount of funding that could in some cases be upwards of $900 million. So because of that, in terms of being able to translate this into levy reductions, while it's always possible, we just need to caution that it's not necessarily the silver bullet that some people may think it is. When we did our review, what we did note very clearly throughout a number of different aspects of the operation is there is a very strong focus on ensuring that your vulnerable populations and your vulnerable residents are taken care of. And I think at the end of the day, that is what human and social services are about. What we've seen is that in certain instances, there are strategies that have been adopted by the County of Lambton that we would consider to be best in class in comparison to some of the other service managers that we've worked with. And in some cases, these could be very small. There's a number of instances where we've identified what we call diversions. And this is instances where your staff will kind of go above and beyond, for lack of a better term, to make sure that people get what they need. And for example, you would have a crisis support worker who deals with people that are in crisis, who will take the time to actually make sure that they get a basket of food to get them through the weekend. We've seen where they will get involved in helping to resolve disputes so that people don't become homeless. And so all of these, Council, what I would suggest, reflect a very strong focus on making sure that your vulnerable residents are taken care of. When we do look at the costs of delivering services and the level of support, the county fares quite well in comparison to the service managers. And I'm just going to jump ahead, if I may. The way that we've tried to depict this is on this graph, and if you can allow me to explain this a bit. The blue lines represent the range of taxation support that the comparator municipalities will provide, and 100% is the average. So some municipalities will present less than average, some municipalities will provide more than average. And what we've done is for each of the services, each of the buckets of services, not only have we calculated the range, but the blue dot shows where the county of Lambton lies. And I'll apologize because you may not necessarily be seeing it on this slide, I'm just noticing. But in the main report, what you will find is that in almost all instances, the county of Lambton meets provincial service level standards, and in a number of cases deals with a higher level of service demand than other comparable service managers, but does it at a level of municipal support that is actually less than the comparator municipalities. The only example where we can see that you're higher is in the instance of homelessness, and the reason for that, Council, is because in at least 3 of the instances, the service managers that we've included don't provide any municipal support for homelessness programming. And so what we did was we actually showed homelessness in 2 graphs. One is with all of the municipalities included, which includes those that do not provide homelessness funding. And then we've provided it for municipalities that do provide them. And I'm just gonna, if I may, my version didn't show the dots, so I'll just switch over. And hopefully, Council, you can see this now. And what you'll see once again is the blue dots represent Lambton County. And you can see that for human and social services from an overall perspective, and for those municipalities that actually provide taxation support for homelessness, your numbers are either at or below the average. And so you are what we would consider to be efficient from a delivery perspective in comparison to your peer groups. Now, despite some of the positive aspects that we've identified through our review, the reality is there are a number of instances where we've identified potential opportunities for streamlining, for efficiencies, for administrative resource reductions. And so there's a lot of reliance on paper that we've noted that you could potentially clean up through better use of technology. There is the potential for more coordination and collaboration between the functional units to make sure that you're sharing information and make sure that you're sharing resources. In certain instances, you can get efficiencies by looking at your organizational design, by looking at the use of technology. As I've mentioned, there's some instances where you're performing low value work where we believe the cost of actually doing the work exceeds the benefits. And then lastly, there are some aspects of the finance functions that we would suggest could potentially be streamlined as well. And I just want to caveat, Council, we weren't asked to look at your finance functions. These are more finance functions related to social services, and that's where we would have picked them up. So from a potential courses of action perspective, we've identified 3 priorities that we have suggested to your staff you may want to focus on. Looking at increased digitization to get rid of paper and to make sure that you're streamlining the processes. There's looking at additional administrative efficiencies from your admin processes, and then looking at increasing collaboration to make sure that you're maximizing your resources to the fullest extent possible. The county also administers Circles Canada, which I will say is a very interesting program in a good way. What we would suggest, Council, is some of our analysis has indicated you may actually be subsidizing some of the other service managers that use the Circles Canada program. So we did talk about how could you make sure that from an administrative perspective, you want to look at how you fund Circles Canada and how you administer it. And then lastly, the next time the Municipal Modernization Fund opens up for intake, you may want to consider actually submitting an application to help with some of the implementation processes. We have offered to your team as part of the contract to write the next expression of interest because it's sort of the logical handoff. And I will caution Council, we talked about December 18th in the presentation. This is for the Audit and Accountability Fund, which is a different stream. We expect the Modernization Fund will actually open up in early 2021, but at the end of the day, we are still available to assist the county should you require it. So, Mr. Warden, members of County Council, that concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank you once again for allowing us the opportunity to serve. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you for that presentation and the work. Councillor Stark, question. There you go.
Right. Sorry about that. I got cut off there for a moment. With respect to your presentation, I wanted to focus on our page 29 or your page 5 on your report, and with specific reference to your priority number 3, which you indicated increase the extent of interfunctional collaboration in order to gain economies of scale and other efficiencies. And then you go on to explain that on your page 20. And it seems that your recommendations center around better customer service as it relates to the clients and requiring them to be, it requires less onerous input from their point of view. Am I reading that properly? And if I am, I thought I'd like to get a comment from Mrs. Colasanti as to whether or not the provincial regulations are impeding that. Your comments, please.
Through you, Mr. Warden, that's correct. We very much viewed the collaboration from 2 perspectives. One comment that I'll make is the ultimate end state that people often will try to find with respect to human and social services is what they call one window service, which means if I'm accessing a service that the county provides, regardless of if it's Ontario Works, housing, children's services, for example, ideally what would be nice would be to have the client come in once to provide information with respect to income verification, for example, or to make the application. Right now, what we can find is that does not happen in a singular process per se. And so what you will have is you will have instances where clients will need to interact with the county on more than one occasion. To your point, Councillor, it is intended to enhance customer service because instead of having to come in 2 to 3 times, it allows me to come in just once. It is also intended to drive an administrative process because rather than having multiple intakes, I only have a single intake, so I gain those economies of scale. That is the basis of the recommendation. And to your point, and it's a valid point, one of the things that we have looked at is with respect to income verification, it's the ability to share information that you collect from the Ontario Works process with other functional units inside the county. And one of the discussions that we have had with Ms. Colasanti and your team is whether that is actually permissible or not. So from an implementation perspective, these are clearly things that you need to make sure of because, to your point, you don't want to be breaking the rules. So it is a valid point. It is something you would look at from an implementation perspective, but there's other examples of integration that we would suggest you could do without breaking those rules as well. But Councillor, to your point, it is a valid point, and I'm not sure if Ms. Colasanti wants to add.
Are you, Warden Weber? Thanks for that response, Oscar. As Oscar said, there are certainly some legislative restrictions on that information sharing. And the province itself is looking at some modernization, and we're hoping that they'll start to take a look at that. However, having said that, as you know, we're also going through some work at Lambton Shared, and we thought it was a great opportunity to take a look at any opportunities for some further integration. Council may recall in 2018, we hired a human service integration coordinator, and that person has continued to do some work and is looking at through KPMG's report, where there may be some additional efficiencies to be had, or some things where we can share staff between the different departments within the division. So that work has started, and we're now going to take a really good look at the recommendations in KPMG's report and start to put an implementation team together to work towards some of those integration efficiencies.
Thank you. I was concerned that there may be the potential for circumventing the privacy issues and whether or not some of the recommendations in fact suggested that, but I'm sure that you folks have it under control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions regarding this? Councillor Bradley, and then Councillor Arnold.
Some very simple questions. What was the cost? What was paid KMPG? Secondly, is there an estimate on the savings? And thirdly, what is the cost of implementation of these particular suggestions?
Through you, Warden Weaver. The cost for KPMG was covered 100% by the Municipal Modernization Grant. It was approximately $130,000 to complete the report. We don't have an estimate yet on what the savings might be because we need to really take a look at, as Councillor Stark alluded to, what things can we do while maintaining, the various legislation. We're hoping as we go through the recommendations, certainly that there will be some savings. We are certainly looking towards electronic data management, which will reduce our paper. However, there would be a cost to implement that, and we don't have those numbers down quite yet. We need to do some more research on those numbers, but certainly we can report back to Council when we've thoroughly found all of these savings and what the cost savings will be.
Yeah, I think that's really important for us, and I hope that can be done in a timely manner so it just doesn't slip away with all the other changes going on. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weaver, and I'd like to just address Mr. Poloni's report. I thought it was very well done, very enlightening, especially when you start looking at the costs of approximately $78 million towards the county through, of course, provincial delegation and that sort of thing. But I guess I found very disappointing or surprising in regards to the piece on the Circles program. And I support 100% that the different Circles chapters, we want to make sure we have full cost recovery. But when you look at page 24, it doesn't say that. It talks about increasing the fee for other Circles participants. So I would hope that you'll just change your wording on that and just talk to that about other Circles chapters, because the people that participate in the Circles program, the reason why they're in it is because they're in poverty. The other piece that I found very sad for me personally was the very first bullet point under what we should look at is discontinuance of this program. And I find that very disheartening because we entered into this a number of years ago and became leaders in the country in regards to this, and tremendous amount of support from the community, tremendous amount of support and dedication from those people that have administered this throughout the year. And that would be the last thing that I think that we'd want to see when you start talking about a $78 million budget and to try and save a couple $100,000. And granted, and most of that I think we could recover from the other Circles participants, which was always supposedly being done that way. And that was news to me that we weren't getting full cost recovery back from the other people. But anyways, just a couple of comments there, and I hope that as the county moves forward, that the very last thing we would ever, and something we'd never consider, is discontinuing this program.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold, for those comments. And are there any other questions? Thank you again, Oscar, for your presentation, and I'm sure we'll hear more of this as it goes through the process and analyzed by social services, how they're going to implement some of these changes. We'll continue to get updates. So with that, could I have a motion just to receive this report for information? Councillor White and Councillor Bean, all in favor of that? Thank you very much, and thank you for that. We will,
Thank you very much, Council.
item number 9 is the open minutes of open session from November the 4th. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those minutes? Deputy Warden Marriott and Councillor Cook. Are there any questions on the November 4th minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? carried. Thank you. Item 10 is correspondence. Item A is correspondence to be received and filed. Can I get a motion to receive and file? Councillor White, second by Councillor Miller. Any questions regarding that correspondence? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Information report, item 11, Corporate Services Division. This is our process for our December 2nd Zoom meeting guide. And it's a report to receive and file. And we'll deal with, go through that process later on. Moved by Councillor Arnold, second by Councillor Napper. Any questions? Councillor Napper? You're on mute. Just there you
Yeah,
go.
is this where we decide which committee we want to trade or do something? Or do we do that later on? And
Well, I think
because I think there's in our session there, I think Jackie brought up last year that there was 2 or 3 of us sitting on the committee and somebody should have been on the other one or something, I believe. Does that still exist? I remember you used to have to trade for.
They changed it last year.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I would ask Stefan if there's any comments regarding that or timing on possible trading.
Yes, so the membership for the Committee AM, the membership for Committee AM and Committee PM is set for rotation, and that membership is in Schedule B of that report. So it's set for 2021. However, back in September, we put a note out to council through council's package that if anyone member of any one of those committees wishes to trade with somebody else to go from AM to PM or vice versa, preferably you would do that from your own municipal group. And if you did, just send us a note. So on an annual basis, it does occur from time to time that people switch from AM to PM. But again, we prefer that you do so within your own municipal group. And if you cannot, then you can certainly have a discussion with other groups.
Okay. Thank you for that. I have a mover and seconder for that information report. All in favor to receive? That is carried. Thank you. The next information report is the service delivery review report based on the presentation that we had from a couple minutes ago from KPMG. And it has the financial information and the conclusion in there, the highlights of going forward. So, again, this is an information report. Do I have a motion to receive that for information? Councillor Stark and Councillor Miller. Any other questions regarding that report? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. We have 2 items to receive that not requiring a motion is the Sarnia Lambton Economic Partnership Board minutes from September and the Tourism Sarnia Lambton minutes from September 24th. Motion to receive those for information, or is there no motion required?
Just to receive.
Just to receive. Councillor Hand, seconded by Councillor White. Questions on either of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, thank you. Item number 13, Finance, Facilities and Court Services. This is the report for the Blue Water Health Capital Grant request. And that report has a recommendation in it. Can I get a motion to receive this report? Councillor Bradley, are you moving the recommendation or just the receive? Move the recommendation. Seconded by Councillor Boucher. Any questions regarding that report? Councillor Byrd. You are muted. You're muted, John. There you go.
Okay. I would just like to say, you know, I'm not in favour of this 10 million request, but one item in particular really jumped out at me. Warden or any of staff, can you tell me why the request for 800,000 for a helipad? What is the purpose and where are they going to put, or where do they want to put it? Do you know?
Through the warden, sorry, I don't have that information for you, Councillor Bird. These were basically the correspondence we received was what we got initially. I certainly can follow up with the with Kathy Alexander to determine where that may be located.
Yeah, because I would just like to add, it's a very important point because I understand that the hospital owned the old school field behind them there, that I think it was Central High School or something. So, you know, helicopters can land anywhere on grass, tarmac or anything. So you don't need 800,000 for a helicopter to land in the field. So that's why I wanted to check what they want it for and where, specifically where they want to put it. And the other point is that if they're thinking of a helipad on top of the hospital itself, there's lots of considerations, because from what I've read so far, Transport Canada don't like helipads on tops of buildings in densely populated areas. The other point is that if it's for organ donations or transplants, they need to use jets, because the jets go the longer distances and the helicopters do the short distances for ICU and emerge patients. So I think we need all those details clarified, because on the surface, I don't see any need for the 800,000. So if you could get back to me, I'd really appreciate that, Larry.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know last year this grant request was deferred, asking for more information, and that's why it's back with some of the information. Councillor Bradley, you had your hand up.
Just a comment. The helipad was in the original plans for the new hospital, and it was cut. It was cut because it's a total 100% cost hospital. It's not funded by the ministry. And there has been discussions in the last 2 years about location on the hospital property. They do need a proper place to land. You just can't randomly pick places. You also need a flight path, which, going back to Councillor Bird, Transport Canada has to approve, and there has to be a lot of consultation with the neighborhoods. But the numbers of people that need that service in an immediate manner, instead of driving them to London, is very, very significant. And I think those numbers need to come back to Councillor Bird. Those numbers need to come back to us. The need and what it does to save people's lives, particularly anyone who drives back and forth to London sees those ambulances doing some of those rush jobs that can be handled by the helicopter. It's got a long way to go, but I think we do need more background. You simply can't say we need this 800,000 for this purpose. And it may be that we end up saying we defer that till later in any capital funding down the road, because it's not something that's going to happen very quickly just by Transport Canada and the logistics and all the other things that happen with it.
Okay. Any other comment? The recommendation is referring this through to the budget process. Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Warden Weber. A couple of things that were missing for me in this process was there's no indication of foundation money, of where they're going to get the rest of the funding from. And I appreciate all the hard work that everybody does out there, but you know, for us to spend $10 million, I'd like to understand where the rest of the funds are coming from. Because, and I'll be very honest, I've had to use the helicopter a couple times, the Orange Air ambulance transfer, and through family members, and it's a blessing that we have that. And I think when Councillor Bradley spoke about the expediency of a helicopter, it is tremendous. I've seen it in action a couple of times, and it's a service that we really need and we need to support as far as encouragement and all the rest. But yeah, I'd like to see some of the foundation figures and that kind of stuff. And I don't want to feel like I'm the only one, or the Lambton County is the only one that's funding this piece. And I know we're not, but it'd be nice to see that transparency.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get more information as this goes through the budget process. So, any other questions regarding this with the recommendation to consider it a budget? All in favor of that request? That is carried. Thank you very much. We go to the AM committee minutes. I would call on Chair White.
Thank you, Warden Weaver. Members of County Council, I present to you the committee AM minutes of November 18th, 2020 for your consideration.
Thank you very much. We'll start off with infrastructure development services. Item 1 is correspondence. Item 2, information reports. Item 3 is the city-county maintenance agreement. Item 4, local municipal meeting with conservation authorities. Councillor Bradley.
This, Warden, is it the intention of the county to take an official position on this legislation towards conservation authorities? I know it's a very significant piece of legislation. It's become very, very controversial. Is the intent for county staff to come back on issues that might impact on the county as it relates to conservation authorities, any changes? Or is that going to be left to the lower tier to do their diligence and respond from that level?
Mr. Cole.
If I may, through you, Warden. The originating motion for this, I think, came out of a desire to meet with the conservation authorities and discuss the current service levels and their function in within different local and upper tier county realms. And really, the county was just asked to be a facilitator for that meeting, primarily to those local municipalities. So at this time, we don't have any direction to weigh in on the current discussion. It's just to facilitate a meeting between the Conservation Authority and those local municipal authorities.
I understand that. Mayor Ferguson, Mayor Loosley had been engaged in that discussion, and that was before this legislation. I guess I'm asking, do you believe that there should be a county review and position taken on some of these very controversial changes? I'm just trying, I don't want to put the county into that system if there really isn't. It's more of a local responsibility. But if there are county engagements in this legislation, then I think we should have, from a county perspective, a report back on it. But I don't want to do that if that's a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, at this time, I don't think there's been anything identified through this process at the county level that has stood out as as something that sits squarely in our realm, and we have just deferred that to the local municipalities at this time. If we, as this continues and this discussion continues to happen, if we identify something that we need to report back to county council on, we certainly will.
Well, if I could just close, Mr. Warden, by saying to county council, my concern, based on the pattern we've seen in the last year or two with this government, that legislation will probably go through very, very quickly. So that's my only concern, that we missed that opportunity. So thanks for your comments, appreciate it.
Okay, I have Councillor Stark, Councillor Cook, and Councillor Napper. Councillor Stark.
I have to echo Councillor Bradley's comments in that Bill 229 has a direct impact on municipalities and the planning associated with that. So I do think that the county has a role to play, given that many of the lower tier municipalities get their planning through the county. As an example, one of the provisions in Bill 229, or one of the planned changes, is to allow continue to allow the Conservation Authority to intervene as a proponent against zoning applications for new plans of subdivision, which clearly has an impact on all municipalities that are looking at any subdivision expansions. there would be an example where do we want conservation authorities to have the ability to become a proponent against particular subdivisions when those subdivisions have already been approved by the elected bodies. And there's an example where I think we as a county, particularly those municipalities that use planning services through the county, they have a vested interest. So I think there is a need for the county to become involved beyond simply the coordination factor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Cook, and then Councillor Napper.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. Just to follow the conversation, I'm not sure, Councillor Stark, if he had that just exactly correct. I thought it was the other way around, that they were actually taking the power away from the Conservation Authority to make that decision as opposed to keeping their decision. But the legislation is going forward very quickly, so I don't know if county would have enough time to actually get comment into it. That's the challenge, because I think they're going to probably try and get this pushed through this with the omnibus bill for the budget early December. So I think we'd have a real, if we're going to get something done, it's something that we need to get on like yesterday at the county level especially. I know the lower tier municipalities, we can all get it at our council meetings, but I don't know what the county could do in the short term without getting hung up on the timing.
Okay, I will let Councillor Stark respond and then Councillor Napper.
Councillor Cook, that is exactly right. And the reason that I bring it up is the St. Clair Conservation Authority is petitioning the government to in fact have that opportunity, and I disagree with that. So I'm saying that even though I'm a member of the St. Clair Conservation Authority, I do not believe that they should have that right, and I believe I'm in the minority as it relates to members of the St. Clair Conservation Authority. However, having said that, it is in the interest of the lower tier municipalities to have a voice, particularly when the St. Clair Conservation Authority is taking the position that they should have the ability to intervene. And that's something I don't agree with.
Okay. Councillor Napper.
Yeah, I think a lot of our concerns was the turnaround times and stuff like this here. And I would think that would affect the county on a lot of the development and stuff that's going on out there, where they come 3 hours before the meeting and give you a report on something, and it's turning it down. It's happened several places. And I thought that's what we were addressing was in the industry, there's a turnaround time. You get your permits and you're expected to have all the answers. And these guys aren't doing it. And they're making them go through hoops and hollers along the lakeshore out there with erosion and stuff that's not really necessary. And I think that's the concern we had. And I think I thought the county might, through planning, have something to do. I could be wrong.
Okay. Mr. Cole, anything to add?
No, to Mr. Warden. Yeah, I think that's exactly where this concern originated out of, was and why the county was asked to hold that meeting.
Okay. Councillor Broad and then Councillor Loosley.
Thanks, Warden Weaver. I think the county should stay out of it, to be quite honest. Allow the lower tiers to voice their concerns on what's out there. A lot of that changes that are being made, it's exactly what I know our council sit in, and that's what we wanted. We wanted these changes that are coming there in front of us. So each township or municipality has a board member. Let's allow them to do their job, and I'm not really sure what the role of the county would be in it. That's my point of view. Thanks.
Councillor Loosley.
Thank you, Warden Weaver. I support Councillor Stark and all this, and I do sit on the Conservation Authority. These changes have been talked about for a long time. This isn't something that just came up a little while ago, but I certainly support these changes. I think they need to make these changes. And the only concern I have with the county maybe getting involved is the idea of building permits being contracted out to the Conservation Authority for their input. That holds things up. So there is some county involvement in this, but I just want to state that I know it's moving quickly, but this is something that has been talked about for a long time. And I think I support these changes. And but I do think, as Councillor Broad said, it has more, I suppose, of an impact on the local municipalities. But I also think, Councillor, that the county needs to maybe be involved a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Good discussion on Councillor Boucher. Are you on mute? Can't hear you, Councillor Boucher.
Are you okay now?
Yep.
Okay. What I'm concerned about, if we don't oppose what the government it says after, this issue of conservation authority has been with the government for a long time, and every new government try to pick on it and take something out. And unless you oppose what they're doing it, before you know it, they'll get something else, and before you know it, I think the Conservation Authority will be in danger of having the government take over or completely reduce the authority.
Okay. I don't see anyone else to comment on this. I know that all the members, all the lower tier municipality are represented on their conservation authorities, and we'll certainly take that input back. And we do have asking here that they come with a meeting with County Council. That's in this motion as amended. Item number 5 is adopted as amended. We move on. If there's anything else, Public Health Services Division. Lost my screen. Item number 6 is correspondence. Item number 7, information reports. Item number 8 for committee paramedicine administration vehicle. And Cultural Services Division, item 9, information report. Item 10, Oil Museum of Canada renovations. Item 11 is the bequest for the Petrolia Library Children's Area. Item 12 was adjournment. Chair White.
And thank you, Warden Weber. Members of County Council, I move that the Committee AM minutes of November 18th, 2020 be received and filed.
I have a seconder for that, Councillor Miller. Any further questions? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. Committee PM, Chair Rombaut.
Thank you, Warden Weber. I present the Committee PM minutes from November 18th, 2020 for Council's consideration.
Thank you. Long-term care division, item 1 is information reports. Item 2 regarding Adult Enrichment Center Advisory Committee. Item number 3 regarding the Dementia House. Corporate Services Division, oh, sorry, Councillor Bradley.
Just had a question on the name. Is that the intended long-term name for if this gets approved?
Through you, Mr. Warden, absolutely not. We're still working on that, Councillor Bradley. Thank you for the question. It's sort of developed just from making it clear what it was, but hopefully by the next council meeting, we'll have a different name for it.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. On the Corporate Services Division, Motion 4, information report. Motion 5, services and fee schedule. Finance, facilities, and court services. Item 6 is information reports. Social services division. Item 7, information reports. Item 8, hiring of support workers. Councillor Bradley.
Question on the turnaround time on that, and when will those people be in the communities? Was that already underway?
Through you, Warden Weaver, to Councillor Bradley. That is, we have presently 3 staff on contract in those roles. So if council approves this motion, we would seek to make those permanent and post those as permanent positions, but we do have individuals starting that work already.
Okay, thank you for that. Item 9, regarding new affordable housing development. Councillor Stark.
Thank you, Warden. This motion was put forward by Warden Weaver and seconded by myself, and it talks about the opportunities within the Federal Rapid Housing Initiative, which we call the funding. My question is, through you to Ms. Colasante, is what is the potential size of the funding envelope for this particular initiative?
Through you, Warden Weaver, to Councillor Stark. Presently, council may recall, we put aside $1.17 million last year towards a project like this. So we'll be looking for matching dollars. We've applied to the province through the Social Service Relief Fund capital phase for 1.3 million because we felt that if we matched the dollars we had, we would have a better chance of getting the funding. So we did that, and it was a smaller project. We'd be looking at 18 to 24 units, so looking for a parcel of land that size. Also, with the quick turnaround, we would be looking to manage that within our social housing portfolio. So we wanted something that was not going to have significant increases to our base budget. So based on that rationale, that's what we were looking at. Well, we put this in, the Rapid Rehousing Initiative came out. So we would be looking for similar dollars from the federal government if we don't receive the provincial dollars. And actually, even if we don't receive the provincial dollars, we may apply for the federal dollars and look to make something a little bit larger or add some supportive services. But it's a very small federal pot of money, because you have to remember it's for all of Canada and it is a small pot. So we felt that that was a reasonable amount of money to apply for.
Follow-up, Councillor Stark, and then Councillor Bradley.
Yes, I wanted to refer back to the committee meetings, the committee meeting on this topic, and particularly Councillor Cook's comments, which I think were extremely important. He made the comment, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I do believe this is accurate. His comment was that we should be looking for publicly owned lands to look at siting this particular facility. And he used the example of the facility that we own in Forest as an example of what an effective and efficient facility would look like. Having said that, we also had Councillor Bucci at the Sarnia City Council meeting make a motion that the interest that Sarnia still has an interest, or certainly wants to explore our interest in that particular facility. My question is, do we have, or have we entertained any discussion with the Public School Board as to whether they would entertain a division of that property, in other words, sell it in parcels, whereby the rear campus area of the former Skits building could in fact be accessed while leaving the remaining existing building for sale to another entity? Have those opportunities been explored? I know that we are looking at trying to find a location in either Point Edward or in Sarnia. And I'd hate to think that we take this particular site off the radar. Thank you.
Through you, Warden Weaver, to Councillor Stark. We haven't had any official dialogue yet with the school board regarding the property. Certainly once council approves the motion today, that's something that we could look to do, to start to look at those explorations and see if something like that may be possible.
Thank you. I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Councillor Bradley and then Councillor White.
Excuse me. There's a lot of activity going on in downtown Sarnia right now, so excuse the sirens. It's my biggest concern, that the comment about Point Edward and Sarnia, is that there will be direct consultation with city and Point Edward staff on possible locations. We've had examples a long time in the past where that didn't happen. And yet their knowledge, and even the political knowledge, is very high. And Councillor Stark talked about the Skits property, on what possible sites exist in our community. And often what happens is another site comes to mind that we didn't even contemplate to try to meet other goals too with this. So I would like some guarantee that the CAO of Point Edward and the CAO of Sarnia will be contacted, because we're constantly searching for private sector groups for land that's suitable for their uses in the community. So will that be part of the process, guaranteed?
You, Warden Weaver, to Councillor Bradley. Absolutely. We've had some preliminary discussions with the City of Sarnia staff, not yet with Point Edward staff. And again, pending the outcome of this motion today, we were going to move forward with a more fulsome discussions about that with both staff from the City of Sarnia and from Point Edward. That would be our next step.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor White.
Thank you, Warden Weaver. And on the very same topic of land, over the last number of months, I've had discussions with city staff in Sarnia in regards to our own possibility of offering up some usable space. And a report did come back earlier this week to City Council. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of viable options presented in that. So of the usable, developable land that we have in the city, it really centered around parking lots and a few other small pieces of property. So we don't have a lot, it seems, in our bank to offer up. However, I hope that those discussions continue and we can find some maybe suitable alternatives within our stock. But with that said, I believe with the school board as well, if there's the potential to have a discussion beyond the Skits property, the school board's been banking property throughout our city for quite a significant period of time, and perhaps a little bit of a nudge could free up some of that space. I can think of a few neighborhoods where there are significant pieces of property where potentially somewhere in the ether they will decide to build a mega school, but at this point it seems like that these properties are just sitting there vacant and could be potential development sites as well. So I'm just wondering if I could encourage more discussion with the school board about some potential sites that maybe currently aren't being discussed as well.
Okay. Again, good discussion, and I'm sure everyone will keep those communications going if this motion continues to pass, which I think we're at item 9 regarding that.
Excuse me.
Item 10, 11, and 12 were in camera, moving back into regular open meeting, and item 13 is adjournment. Chair Rombach.
Thank you, Warden Weaver. I move that that County Council accept the Committee PM minutes of November 18th, 2020 as read.
Second by Councillor Bird. Question? Oh.
Yeah.
You have a question, Councillor Bird?
Yes, thank you, Warden Weaver. I was waiting till you got to the end of the list rather than jumping in during the list. So I would like to comment on item number 3. I am really concerned about this one for the dementia house, because the current situation that we're all in, the imposed situation, and especially focusing on the financial side of it, whether COVID-19 disappears or not, I think that the recovery and going into next year, we're going to be in a far worse situation financially, and we should be looking at ways to be very, very cautious and careful about all our spending. So whilst I agree with if we need 10 extra beds for the dementia individuals, patients, I'm totally in agreement. If we have space in the back of Meadowview, totally in agreement. That's fine. But why don't we then just buy the 10 beds? I cannot, in all good conscience, support spending millions of dollars like this and $400,000 just simply for the application, because this money is not guaranteed in advance. Sure, you have a situation that says there's a Ministry of Long-Term Care will likely cover it, but if they don't cover it, and we've got this amount of money to spare, why don't we address what the current problem is and has been for a long time and hire a lot more PSWs full-time with benefits to take care of this really drastic situation that we've had for a long, long time? I just think it's really unconscionable to go ahead with spending, more than $5 million on something. Let's just buy 10 beds, put them in the spare room at the back or the spare space that we have there, and go forward with that. Once we're out of this financial COVID imposed total situation, we can review and free up things. But I think we have a long recovery ahead and we should rethink this entire proposal. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, all in favor of receiving these minutes? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. I don't see any items tabled from a previous meeting. Notices of motion, I have none listed. Bylaws?
Warden?
Oh, sorry. Councillor White?
Yes, sir. Another business, if I may.
Yes.
Just want to take this time to let County Council know that I intend to put my name forward next week to serve as warden. I will follow up with an email once the city servers are back up and running.
Any other new business? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Warden Weber, members of County Council. Two things. First, Warden Weber, I know this is probably your last official meeting of this section of term, and I just want to thank you for your leadership that you put forward. And as a past warden, I know the commitment that's been done by yourself and your family, and it's tremendous. And I know we'll talk about this more a little later on in our social time, but I just want to express my thanks to you personally, and I suppose on behalf of all of us, for the work that you've done and the sacrifice. And throughout this pandemic situation, I know it's been a tremendous amount of work for yourself and I know staff as well, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank you very much, you and Ginger and your families, for the work that you've done these last 4 years. And the second thing I think, okay, so yay, very good. I think I can do one of these reaction things.
Thank you, and I seen Councillor Napper had his hand up as well.
So the other thing
I was just, I'm sorry. Was it my turn,
Go
Bill?
ahead, Lonnie. I'll come back if the warden let me ask.
I guess, having been a past deputy warden, I'd like equal time to thank Mr. Marriott for a wonderful job. I know how hard we worked when we were there, and I'd just like to thank Kevin for the time he put in and get some equal time for the deputy wardens. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Lonnie.
Thank you. I was going to do bylaws, but I do have a few words that I'll say and make. Councillor Arnold.
Yes, Warden Weber, if I may, I know that you folks, yourself and the CAO, went to the city of Sarnia. I wonder if there's any highlights you want to express to all of us publicly on County Council of what went on during your presentation and the question and answers, I'm sure, that came out of that session.
Yeah, I can report on that a little bit. It was a very good session. We highlighted some of the things that the county has done throughout this past year, the COVID exchange, and how we have managed through that, how staff has did a good job of being flexible and move forward. Also highlighted some things that are going to be challenges in the next year. The budget is one, homelessness, and a few other things. So we had a good exchange. It was a very good meeting. And as I said at the end of that, if any of the municipalities would like a state of the county to their county council meetings, that can be arranged. We will look at an opportunity. We talked after that about possibly having that as an annual event, and whether it can be in a larger facility when we get back to meeting together, or whether it will be through a Zoom presentation or a video that's put together. So it was a good exercise, and was pleased with the response and the questions with that. Councillor Bradley.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Mr. Warden, and the CAO. I would recommend it. It was a very positive exchange of information and at a very high level, which I thought was good. And I think there was value to it. I would recommend it to all the other councils to have that engagement. And there were a number of things I think people learned. This is all on live stream. If people go to the city website, they can see the presentation. So I think there was great value, and I think it helps, again, explain county government to the community. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you. And being we're into this, I will say a few words. It's my last meeting of this term. We're doing our bylaws and our mock trial of our voting exercise for next week. Anyway, I would like to extend my personal gratitude to the members of County Council for their patience with me as we went through this year, and everyone learned a lot more about technology, and we will have to remember when next year when we come back to meeting in person to wear pants. And I really am pleased with the level of respect that all the county councilors have for each other and for what they're doing in the community, their commitment. Everyone comes to these meetings and everybody brings what is best for the county of Lambton, and that's very special. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. We don't always agree, but we always come to a consensus that works well for Lambton County. So I'd like to give a shout out to the county staff that kept everyone connected and zooming along. We are not out of this as we continue on next year. We don't know just where this second wave is going. As we said, the costs, the budgeting, the homelessness, the social service issues that we have to deal with next year will be, we all have to work together, make sure that we are delivering all those services efficiently. And the county staff have truly stepped up this year in all departments to make a difference and to get us through this. So I congratulate them. They have worked well together. And finally, one of the things that is talked about at the warden's banquet that couldn't be held is how we, all of us, have a spouse or significant other that supports us. We have family members, and we can't forget how valuable that is, and how we each go back and find something to talk about, a sounding board, and that. So thank you to my wife Ginger and to all of the spouses that support each of us or family friends. So with that, I have, one of the last things that I hear every day when I go out the door from Ginger is choose your words wisely. So I will leave that at that before I say more things than I should. So with that, notice of bylaws.
Thank you. So now we get into the real interesting stuff,
Yeah.
don't we? All right, it's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Ferguson, that bylaws 33, 34, 35 of 2020 be taken as read a first and second time.
All in favor of that? Or questions to that? Questions to that? All in favor of that? Okay. I see hands up. That's good. Carried.
Thank you. And that it's moved by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Councillor Broad that bylaws 33, 34, 35 of 2020 as circulated be taken as read a third and final time.
Questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And we will be going on to the mock trial vote exercise. But I did forget one thing when I was speaking earlier, so I'm going to do that right now. I'd like to propose a toast to the County of Lambton, and I'd like to all to raise our glasses and hopefully get a screenshot of this. This is 2020. This is how we ended the year. If we can, if somebody's there doing a screenshot or somebody's got their cell phone out, here's to all the best in Lambton County. Thank you very much. Now, let's go on to our mock, and I will turn this over to Stefan, to staff that are going to put us in and out of rooms and chat rooms back and forth. So.
Yes, thank you, Warden Weaver. We'll spend the next few minutes to go through a trial vote in preparation for next week's warden and deputy warden elections. So we'll do that, and in addition to that, so that we can get the experience on our side, and of course you get to experience it as well, we will be moving councillors from the main meeting into what we call sub-meetings that can be hosted on a Zoom feature. And the purpose of that is just to familiarize yourself with the feature, and then secondly, to provide training here internally. So with that being said, and then we'll get into questions about potential procedure issues and outstanding issues as I see it for next week's elections. So that being said, I'll look to Melissa Donovan to see if we have a mock vote ready to roll out to our councillors. We do. So you will see a panel come up, a ballot. You can click on it, vote as you wish, and once you're done, the votes will be tabulated here. None of your votes, so we cannot, the system doesn't tell us how any one of you has voted. It just gives us an aggregate total. So I would suggest that you go ahead and vote.
I'm sorry, what are we supposed to be looking at?
There is a ballot that says vote for candidate 1, 2, 3. Do you see that?
I do not see it.
Okay. Do any others not see that ballot or haven't seen the ballot? Okay. How many votes did you get?
15.
Just me.
15, and that's it.
17.
Yep. All right. Do you want to retry? 17?
Would you accept his mail-in vote?
A proxy?
I thought about that.
You're not using Dominion voting systems, are you?
That starts. Okay, we're going to relaunch it and send it back out. Ian, Councillor Vian, let us know if you don't see anything on your screen pop up.
Okay, I just see County of Lambton.
So there should be a
All I
screen.
see is the County of Lambton.
All right, so is there a screen now on your, is there a ballot on your screen that reads test warden's election? Please choose a candidate for warden in Lambton County. Who has not seen that? Who is not seeing it?
Does not.
So Melissa, I'm seeing one pop up on my screen.
Yes.
Okay, just for this purpose.
Is Ian using the web version of the Zoom software or the downloaded software?
All right, so Ian, Councilor Ian, are you using the web version of the software or the downloaded version of the software? So how do you click in? How do you go into the meeting?
I believe it's the download. I'm not really sure. Should I be in a different mode, should I, or what?
Yeah, we're gonna connect with you again on that, just to make sure that your ballot does pop up at the appropriate time. Maybe we'll do this once more. Melissa, see if we can send out the ballot again.
You want us all to submit again as well?
Yes, please.
Change your vote?
Absolutely. Good stuff. So, Councilor Bean, I'm assuming you didn't see that third one?
I did not.
All right, so we'll make sure that between now and next week that the ballot box does present itself on your screen, so there'll be somebody reaching out to you shortly to guarantee that, and we'll do another test as amongst ourselves here and with you through your offices. The other piece of the test that we wish to do now is to select a number of you, 4 or 5 or so, as the municipal group. So when we get into December 2nd, we'll be hosting a meeting as such, but we will be hosting sub-meetings. So the first sub-meeting will be the municipal group, 4 of you, and then of course the municipal group will then choose its members to the striking committee, which will then require the striking committee to meet. And after the striking committee meets, Committee A.M. will meet, and then Committee P.M. will meet. So we'll have the main meeting and 4 sub-meetings throughout the meeting. We will go through that exercise now very briefly so that you can experience both from the main meeting, who remains in the main meeting, and who gets moved into the sub-meeting. It also allows us to practice here moving folks. So again, Melissa will choose 4 of you to constitute our municipal group sub-meeting. So 4 of you will be moved to that meeting. The rest of you will stay on this meeting. Melissa?
I'm moving everyone.
Has everybody been moved over? All 17?
All set.
Great. So I've got 6 participants on my list.
There's only 3 on my screen.
Yes.
Oh, you're in different meetings.
4.
You're in different. You're in all those 4.
Yes.
Okay. And then if I speak here. Good morning. So we're in a subgroup. Everybody sees us. There's supposed to be 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fine. And this would be, for instance, one of the sub meetings. And once you're done your business, assuming, for instance, you're acting as a municipal subgroup and or the striking committee, whatever it may be, and then at that point in time, you will be moved back into the main meeting. You do not press the leave room button at any point in time, because if you were to leave this room, you're leaving effectively the entire Zoom meeting. And that's really point number 1 in terms of sub meetings and making sure that you don't leave the sub meeting by pressing any buttons. You will be moved by the host, Melissa Donovan. So she will move us all back into the main meeting. I can speak over the system now. All right, so there you go. The process is fairly simple when we move individuals to their own meetings. Again, the key point is to ensure that none of the individuals in those subgroup meetings press the leave meeting button, because if you did, you're going to leave the Zoom meeting entirely. Of course, you can come back in through the link, but nonetheless, you stay with your group until the host moves you back in. The host during the December 2nd meetings will monitor the meeting. So for instance, when the municipal group meets, she'll monitor the 4 subgroups meeting, and then once you're all done, once you're all over, then we'll flip you all back into the main meeting, and then we'll go through the meeting that way, the rest of the agenda for that meeting. Are there any questions or concerns about sort of moving from the main meeting into subgroup meetings? It's fairly, I think it's fairly seamless, and we shouldn't be experiencing too many issues with that.
Councillor Arnold had a question.
Okay, Councillor Arnold?
Thank you very much, Warden. Stefan, and the 4 of us were off and 5, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we had a mic that was active, but I was hearing another meeting going on in the background because everybody was on mute, and it didn't stop all the time we were gone for me. I could hear somebody, it sounded like a waste management thing happening. So, and it was nonstop for all the time we were gone.
Can you move try another test, maybe move just 4 of them into a subgroup meeting, including Councillor Arnold? And then we'll continue the main meetings and see what happens. So we'll do another test with 4 of you, including yourself, Councillor Arnold, and see what happens in that sub-meeting. All right. So I'm going into that meeting. Maybe it's because of this. Yeah. All right, so am I on?
Councillor Arnold can't hear us, so. Hear me now? Mine's on mute.
Okay, so I think, so again, that was an example of moving a smaller group from the main meeting into a subgroup meeting. We did sort of rectify the problem, or identify the problem that Councillor Arnold raised moments ago. That was that I'm in a large room here, effectively using the sound system from our RICO billboard, and that sound system was echoing throughout all of your meetings previously. So that'll be corrected at our end. That being said, so we now have, I think folks quite familiar with the ballot box and process for meeting or for voting, which is fairly intuitive. We do have to reach out to Councillor Bean to ensure that his system works perfectly for December 2nd. We've gone through the meetings and of course moving some of you to your subgroup meetings and back into the main meeting. That will be fairly done seamlessly. Then the last really pieces to discuss are what I call sort of administrative matters for December 2nd. I understand that there are now 3 candidates for both the position of warden and deputy warden. For the position of warden, we have, of course, Mr. Weber, we have Mr. Marriott, and Mr. White. And for the position of deputy warden, we have Mrs. Ramos, Mrs. Hand, and Mr. Stark. I will reach out to you with just a process sheet explaining sort of what's expected of each one of you as candidates for December 2nd and the voting rules that apply. I will also make myself available to all of you on next Monday, 2 days prior to December 2nd, to ensure that if you've got last minute questions or clarifications, then you have the opportunity to do that. For council's information, there are different rules, election rules for both of those positions. For the warden's position, the successful warden, the successful candidate, I should say, needs to secure a majority vote from council. That is 9 out of the 17 votes. In a 3-person race, if in the first ballot there is no majority secured by one of those candidates, then the candidate securing the least amount of votes gets dropped off, and the second ballot continues on. And on that ballot, if there's an individual that gets the most, or gets the majority vote, i.e. 9 out of 17 at least, then he, in this case, would be elected warden. Different rules apply for the deputy warden position. The deputy warden position is effectively one ballot. The individual that secures the most votes in that ballot, you don't need to secure a majority votes from council, but just the most votes out of that ballot is elected deputy warden. Should there be a tie between the most votes getters, so for instance, if 2 individuals secure 7 votes each, leaving the third candidate with 3 votes, doing some quick mental math here, then the 2 with the securing the most votes would have a runoff election amongst them 2. And the person that, of course, securing in that second ballot the most vote would be elected deputy warden. We will reach out to the declared candidates as well about those candidates for position of warden coming out to the admin building on December 2nd in your own rooms and accessing the meeting from your own rooms, because we would like to think about possibly a very short ceremony if it's required in terms of passing off the chain of office if that's required. And that being said, I think those are the issues I wish to address. There is one last one, a scrutineer. I will reach out to one of you. Since I haven't seen too many people volunteer just yet to act as scrutineer, I will reach out to one of you who is not a declared candidate for either position to assist us as a scrutineer. The scrutineer's role come December 2nd would be to simply sit with us in this room and visually see the results of the votes that will come in from each election.
Councillor Knopper, a question?
Yeah, I'm close here. I could just whip over. It's 0.7 kilometers to your office. I could whip over and join you.
That's fair enough. We'll save on the kilometers. And there it is. So I guess that's, unless there's any objections to that, that's settled. Councillor Knapper will act as our scrutineer. And we'll move forward. So again, we will reach out to Councillor Bean, correct his computer issues, whatever they may be. And then, of course, I will reach out to all declared candidates for the position of warden and deputy warden with a summary process sheet, and then make myself available, and I'll advise those candidates of the time I'm available next Monday to answer any last minute questions. And then we'll proceed, of course, to December 2nd's meeting. That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you for that. With that, we are at adjournment. And I would ask for a motion to adjourn to meet again on February the 3rd. Councillor Rod, second by Councillor White. Any further comments?
I made it back. I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
You sound, your sound does sound better at this time, yes. Have a better connection possibly. Staff will reach out to you and we'll make sure that you get included and how you log on and everything for that vote. So
sounds good.
Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Stay safe, everybody. See you next week.